Well, hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Purposeful Marketing Podcast. I'm really trying to work on my podcast voice today, but even better, let's get down to the nitty-gritty. This is a tactical episode for us about a specific tactic that I think really enhances all of your marketing, and that is customer research. So I'll kind of ask the question, and I'm going to probably quickly throw it over to our customer research expert, James. But how do you leverage customer research? Let's keep it broad, and then we'll start getting down to the details. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I think the safest way to leverage it or to think about it in a broad sense is like, if you're doing it right, you can use it to center all of your activities around actually communicating to the people you're selling to, like communicating to them in a human way. Like you don't get infinite opportunities to develop a human connection with a potential customer. You need to do some of that work with marketing. Like you have to be doing something in that line. If your customers, they might feel like you've got the product that they need. They might feel like a bunch of people have the product they need. That's most often the case. What can really drive a lot of value in everything that you do is when you do it, when you communicate to your potential customers about, your value or your understanding of, what they're going through. If you do it in a way that actually resonates with them on a personal level, like that is how you actually build trust. I feel like we're getting to the point too where, a certification sticker on the package, no. Your inclusion in a list published by NAMI, no. Like people don't, that's stuff that people care about less than your ability to deliver something like that feels authentic and human to them. And you're not really going to be able to do that without performing effective customer research.
Wonderful. Thanks for laying that out, James. Now, Mary, you are the strategist of the group here. And I just have to ask, customer research, how does that impact your strategy? Why would you make the case for it?
I love how James did it. It's like a way of reframing all of your marketing communication. So for me as a strategist, I'm a little more on the tactical side. So for me, it's how am I hearing what customers are saying makes a company unique and different and applying that to X marketing effort. So it could be a web page redesign. So how am I going to leverage what I'm hearing from customers to put on homepage copy or contact us or a product page? If I'm running paid campaigns, how am I going to leverage this customer insight to really hone in on a pain point or a problem and then deliver that solution? So for me, it's like, I'm thinking tactical. So the whole time I'm reading, James, we both work together at Gorilla 76. He's conducting the customer research. He's doing the summaries. I'm listening in there and I'm like, all right, what am I pulling out? Like what chunks am I going to pull out for the website? What am I going to do for paid campaigns? What am I going to do for this blog, case study, whatever? And of course, like James is amazing at doing the strategy side too. I'm just doing it for how am I going to like pull this out and execute on it?
Excellent. Now, thank you for sharing. Customer research improves every marketing function. From a performance marketing standpoint, I do want to tackle that is what I think customer research equips you with is when you're targeting and answering the why there. And when you had that research from the customer and when you're asking yourself, are these the right job titles? Are these the key buyers? Is the ad message going to work? That customer research can fill some of those gaps for you. I do want to take a step a little higher. Now, we all work in B2B, if it's SaaS, manufacturing, professional services. And the point I want to make is those are all businesses based on relationships. So there's just nothing better than actually talking to the customer and getting that firsthand information from their mouth. What it does, it gives you focus, it gives you empathy, it gives you understanding. Like, again, that's the why for me is if we're going to help our customers win, even if we lose, we have to know the customer. We have to talk to them. We have to get in their mind, get in that seat, and really take that in for face value. Now, the question probably for our listeners, and then again, the practitioners, the everyday practitioners, is how the heck do you do it? Because this is a hot button issue on LinkedIn, right? It's like people will just say, do your customer research. If you're not talking to your customers, you're not doing marketing. Okay, great. I don't have all the keys to the card. I can't do anything I want in my company. Now, how do I start marketing customer research today? I'll throw that one to you, Mary, and then James.
Yeah, I was in the same place like probably 3 or 4 years ago, like listening to a bunch of really cool people on LinkedIn telling me how customer research was important. And I was like, cool, now what? Like, what do I do? And MJ Peters, if you guys don't follow her already, go look her up on LinkedIn. She's amazing. She had an episode on her podcast and she laid out exactly step-by-step how to do it, whether you're doing it with customers who you have or you're entering a new market. And it just sounds so simple that I think people take it for granted. So if you're talking to current customers, the easiest thing to do is take a step back and see, what are you promoting? So what are you doing, like a full company campaign? So you want to learn more about how to better position your company in the market. Then you're going to need to talk to like a wide range of customers from your CRM, people who bought from you in the last, 1 to 3 years, depending on how long your sales cycle is. And then you're going to want to tackle the job titles who you're going to target in X campaign. It could be email. It could be writing blogs for SEO. I mean, I hate them, but if you're going to trade shows, you're probably targeting a very specific industry and a specific job title there. So make sure you know who you're targeting first. Pull those out of your CRM or your ERP system, pull their emails, pull their phones. And the easiest way to do this, and this works whether you're targeting current customers or cold ones, and I'd love to hear James's take on this too. I just said, hi, my name is Mary. I'm a new marketer in X industry. I just want to learn more from X job title. So we'll do oil and gas. Hey, I am a new marketer at a company, whatever company you're at, and I'm tasked with learning more about the oil and gas industry, specifically from the perspective of process engineers. I really would respect your point of view. This is not a sales call, so I always emphasize that. And then said, I won't take up more than 15 minutes of your time. And then that was it. That was my in. And so super simple, 3 sentences, give them an easy in. And it worked. You send out like 20 people. I think obviously current customers work a little bit better. So I think I sent out like 30 requests and I got back from like 8 to 10 people. So pretty decent sized survey. And it sounds small. It doesn't sound like that's going to make an impact, but trends do start to show up after even just 3, 4, 5 interviews. So it's okay if the sample size is not huge, especially if it's current customers.
All super helpful. And just to tack on to what you said at the end, something that's frustrating to hear as someone who really advocates for this and really enjoys doing customer research, let's say your total addressable market is like 600 companies, and a typical good sales year for you sees you get maybe 4 new customers that you haven't seen before. You're thinking to yourself, we hit it, we did it. If I talk to 3 of your customers and 2 of them say the same thing, and that's the only people you can put me in touch with, and 2 of them say the same thing, like, I don't want to hear, well, these are 2 very specific instances. Like, yeah, you're right, they are. But I understand that these are unique, but you don't need 48 new customers this year. You're selling $1 million product. You need 1. And if this equips me to be able to talk to 1 person that you've never communicated with through marketing before, that could be worth $1 million. So I think a word to people who are looking at the expanse that is customer research. And maybe your company has never done it in a qualitative way before. You've only ever, gathered data. You don't have to change the world with your beginning attempts at customer research. You just have to have honest conversations with customers. And sure, it'd be best if you can get in front of, 80% of your best fit customers for an hour, but that's probably not going to happen. And you have to know that actually getting in front of 30% of the people that you reach out to for 20 minutes, maybe 30 minutes, and talking to them can be really valuable if you focus and you know what you're doing. I think what you end up needing to do in terms of the actual, how do you conduct the conversation? How do you prepare for the conversation? Changes based on, where your company's at and its maturity level of understanding customers. Do you still need to do real positioning based on what customers actually think and not based on what you think about your brand? Do you kind of have that down and you have a cadence going where you always confirm that, but you're looking to launch a new product? So those are two very different, situations. I'd imagine that, Weeks, in your experience, you've got, something to say about kind of the different types of customer research tactics or kind of programs that could be, even running simultaneously. But I think it's important to know, am I doing this to just get this started, to get general knowledge, to get general qualitative feedback, or do I really need to test out some very specific hypotheses here?
Great question, James. Happy to try to take this one and deconstruct it. As far as how I should think about customer research, how I am going to apply it, and how I should think about it, I think it should be viewed in two lenses. One is from a customer success standpoint. I should just be talking to my customers all the time, getting feedback. And then two, from a deep analysis research standpoint with subject matter experts. Let me tackle the customer success one real quick, because that's not really what this episode's about. But something to think about is, there should be someone who's a part of your team who works with the customer after the shipment of, let's say, it's heavy machinery, right? It's that factory support component. It's that person who's making sure the delivery is there, who's asking those questions. It's an empathy position. That person's going to get great research from the customers at every touch point to bring back to the team and improve processes. So that's one I want our listeners to think about. But the one we're really talking about today is those voice of customer interviews with a subject matter expert, where you can get a deep analysis. Why I think these are so great for the strategy as a whole is, one, this is something super obvious I want to point out to our listeners, is you need a subject matter expert to interview another subject matter expert. So there's a reason why, for Gorilla 76, why the content team does the customer interviews. It's because they themselves have a deep subject matter expertise in their own discipline, and they are trained to kind of ask these questions and then do the research. I think that's the best case scenario from an agency standpoint. Now, in an in-house standpoint, I think the best thing you can do is at least get a marketer and a subject matter expert talking to a customer. Again, my time at Caterpillar is we had product application specialists. They were kind of in-field marketers. They knew the customers. It helped me as a marketing analyst to hang out with them and go talk to the customers, right? Because they spoke the lingo, I asked the questions. So I'm just kind of talking about the framework of how you need to interview these customers. Now, once you get them in the room, I'm going to throw this back to Mary and James in a second, is there's definitely an outcome you're trying to achieve here. And James used the term hypothesis. Is no matter what framework you use for the customer research, if it's the jobs to be done framework, if it's understanding pain, agitation, is you need to understand the questions you're asking have a certain outcome, and you're going to use that outcome later on. Now, I offer that is because I am very much a chatterbox, right? Is get me in a room, I will talk to anyone about anything. And I've done the customer interviews. That's not the objective. The objective is to come with a hypothesis and unlock that truth, whatever it is, so you can utilize that in your marketing. Mary, I'll throw it to you, and then James, you can kind of rebuttal me or add on.
Yeah, I'll take it from the in-house perspective when I first started conducting them. I only asked 4 questions, so because I only had 15 minutes, remember. I promised them I would only talk to them for 15 minutes. So mine was, what does your role look like day to day? So what are your everyday responsibilities? What do you need to make sure happens on a daily, weekly, monthly basis? Then the second and third was, what's the best day in your job look like? What's the worst day in your job look like? And then the final thing is, have you seen anything wholesale change in this industry over time? Because usually the customers I was talking to had been with that company, 5, 10, 15, 20 years. So my question was like, hey, what changes are you seeing overarching?
I like that question set as I fumble with my microphone. I think it's really important to try and understand like what your customer actually sees as a big challenge in their workflow. Because especially if you're doing like voice of customer, if what you're really trying to do is just understand the person, the human being that you're going to be selling to, because, just because you sell spray systems doesn't mean that spray systems is the stopping point in this guy's day. And what you really learn is, you can learn why, because this person still gave their time to you to talk to you, and they've been working with your company for so long. There's still reasons why that's the case. But if you don't understand what this person's actual day-to-day looks like, you don't actually know how like a spray nozzle fits into that. What you operate under the assumption that this person's day-to-day involves them needing the spray nozzle to be absolute heat, like constantly, which is quite often not true. And you start to learn maybe the quality of the product, affects this person's job only in a very specific circumstance. Only in a circumstance when something else fails. Maybe you find out that your product is being used in a way that isn't what you expected. You need to know these things if you're going to communicate authentically with your market, because otherwise, when they see you in their Facebook feed or their LinkedIn feed, and you're saying the wrong things, like you think that aerospace is using your nozzle to do X, when in reality, they're just using it to clean product. They had a huge budget and they got an industrial spray nozzle to be cleaning product or something. That's totally made up and probably not true, but you need to know before you go ahead and spend, a media budget, making yourselves look like you don't understand what's going on. I think a worthwhile thing that I like to ask is kind of just what the biggest, you want to find out what the biggest challenges in that person's day are and in that person's week are. In a very, who cares what company I'm from? Who cares what product I'm selling? I want to know what your biggest challenges are, agnostic of who I am and what my brand is, because that's going to help me communicate with you. And often there's just the easy follow-up question is there anything a spray nozzle manufacturer can do to help solve those problems? That would be the follow-up question. And that, if I could only ask one question and one follow-up, that's what I would ask every time, in terms of voice of customer. But what you're also doing, you are rushing through, your questions. You're trying to learn as much as possible. It's important to be a little bit loose, especially if you can get them to say something in a way that is not what their legal team would have said if you asked their legal team. Because this goes back to leveraging what you learn. I mean, just let them write your copy. At some point, some of these people will write your copy for you. You won't even have to write the ad. They're going to write you your ad if you let them talk. So yeah, I think like an easy way to think about how to do customer research is to think about how awesome it would be to have a recording of a best fit customer talking about what a pain in the ass something is and how your company could solve it if they so chose. And it's like, well, now let's just tell a story of our company solving that problem. Like that'll be the easiest ad you ever wrote because you let the customer do it for you. You didn't even pay him.
I love everything you unpacked there, James. And two things I want to speak about specifically is number one, the why you're doing it is you're trying to combat assumptions that you have about your customers that are not true. And how you do that is hearing it directly from them. And kind of with the spray nozzles example is, they don't talk about the product that way. So why do we talk about it that way in our marketing? That's why we do the voice of customer interviews. Number two is like how you use the research. And we'll dive a little deeper into this, but I love how you just said, like, let your customers write it for you. Again, what is our purpose of marketing? It's for our customers, right? Is if they respond and resonate to what we're asking in this way, let's utilize it. It's going to make our marketing better. Let's stop testing things that are assumptions that we think are going to work. We just heard it directly from our customer. That's what we should spend our time doing. Now, Mary, again, as a strategist, you're going to use this customer research in many different ways. What are like the tactical deliverables, or how are you utilizing the research in your strategy? And then James, kind of tell us a little more about how you use it in content.
Yeah, so how I'm using it in strategy is usually making a thing more specific. Like everyone's freaking B2B industrial product helps you save time, money, energy, or resources. Like I'm so sick of hearing that. I was sick of it when I was an in-house marketer. I'm sick of hearing it now. What I want to know is like specific. So I have a really good example. From one customer interview, I think this guy worked in like pulp and paper or something. And his worst day was if he didn't hit his scrap rate. So if his scrap rate was greater than 20%. So if he had to scrap more than 20%, his boss was on him. They're missing their metrics. They're getting penalized. That shows up in an audit. And that's what his job responsibilities were. Like top 3, one of them was make sure you're hitting your scrap quota, which is less than 20%. So now I'll use your example, James. My spray nozzle is not saving you time and money and energy and resources. My spray nozzle is helping you meet your 20% quota. Like that's beautiful. There's your ad right there. So to your point, James, like let your customer write your ad. Like make sure you're getting at the specifics of, to your point, Aaron, the assumptions of what your product does and the assumptions of the pain points and problems it solves.
Yeah, I think maybe the most like impactful thing you can do once you have this, if you're going to use it for content, and this kind of informs like what you're really trying to get, is to say that, it's a real bummer when, my industrial oven isn't heating my product consistently enough. And what that's doing is it's causing, issues where maybe 5% of our product like cracks during manufacturing. So we're having a small quality issue that it'd be really nice to be able to solve with a better oven. How can we do this? So they're looking for ovens. Well, like telling the story about, oh, your oven's not working, get an oven that works, is not telling a compelling story. And it's the same story that every other company's telling who's selling an oven. So what the customer interview allows you to do is figure out how that failure and the problem it causes, like why it matters. Like, why is that such a big deal? Because really, you're getting paid no matter what. This guy goes in, he does his job, and he leaves, just like you do. Why is this really impacting your life? And you can find out if you just talk to the person. So when you talk to the person and you gather that, you can then load it into the copy all over the place. It's not just that the product isn't coming out perfect. And that's a problem because it creates, you have all these quality control issues. You ask, when you're in the room and you're asking the follow-up questions, you get to find out what the quality issues do to that guy's day. Do the quality issues, do they start some process where he's got to interface with, his boss? Do they have to go lines down at the facility, which presumably is a huge deal? Does he have to do a bunch of paperwork? You can find out how these facilities work and how your equipment impacts the person that you're selling to and their day-to-day in the world that exists that isn't your product. He's not using the oven when he fills out the quality report paperwork. He's not using the oven when he gets audited. But the oven can make all those processes better. And those are the processes that keep him from going out to eat for lunch and have him working through lunch, or the stuff that, keeps the machinist from, going home to her family, or, these are the things that you're getting into how the product impacts in a way that actually resonates, not just, okay, it's my job to go get 3 POs to put in 3 POs. You're telling the actual story of the product, not just, hey, by the way, we sell this. We can be one of your 3 bids. Let's do this. You can become the product that they want to have and compare every other product to, who doesn't tell that story.
I think those both are great practical examples, and I'll kind of give you the performance marketer's view of what to do with customer research. And, again, what I think my function is in the marketing team is to distribute to the right time and right place. Kind of what that customer research does for me is it helps me understand what is the right content to get to the right person at the right time. Is, again, because I heard a customer say it. Okay, now when I build my audience, I'm targeting these job titles. Great, James wrote an impactful piece of content with the research he used. Now let me go distribute it directly to these individuals that I know that it's going to resonate because we heard it from the customer interview in the first place. So again, it's 3 different areas, from strategy, content to paid distribution. It's customer research can help all 3. And I think that's why I really want to encourage, if you're listening, to try it out. I know it's a battle to get it started, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. So just to wrap up, I do want to go around the room here, and if anyone has any tips about any piece of the customer research they want to give, I will start. And I'll throw it to you, Mary. Is number 1, something we were talking about earlier, is what type of customers to interview. And really, I think the answer is anyone. What happens most is, from the agency standpoint, when you're working with in-house marketers, is they're going to go for their best fit customers, the customers that they have good relationships with. I think that's great. I think that's a great starting point. But quite honestly, the people I want to hear about are the customers who are not having a good time. I want to understand and unlock that. Or if you can, and this is very challenging, if you can talk to any customers that they lost during the sales process, I think you're really going to uncover some great detail that you didn't know before, and you can utilize that in your marketing. What about you, Mary?
Yeah, that's a really good tip. I'll kind of piggyback on that and speak more from the in-house side. And that would be, don't let others substitute first-party customer research. So when I really wanted to get this done, it was, well, just go talk to a sales guy, or go talk to customer service, or go talk to product engineering. And I was like, I will talk to them, but I would like to talk to customers first. So make sure you do get that first-party data, and absolutely build relationships and collaboration with your team by sharing the insights that you're getting from those customer interviews and then getting their perspective.
Both of those tips are so good. I think, I want to maybe avoid just giving tips about conducting the interview, even though it's probably the hardest part, just because it's something you'll get good at. You'll get good at not trying to solve the customer's problems in the call. If you're used to selling, you'll get good at not going into pitch when the customer suggests a problem that you actually have a different product that solves. You'll get good at doing all of that stuff over time. I think what's really important is that you establish a process for doing this kind of thing all of the time. I think what happens a lot with Gorilla's clients who, have massive sales functions and, we've got huge engineering functions and we're selling this incredible equipment that is just massively CapEx heavy. And we're now like looking back to find customers that we might want to talk to when, gosh, wouldn't it be easy if 2 months after every $600,000 project delivery, wouldn't you want to just check in? Wouldn't you just like see how things are going? Like if you have a customer success function that makes sure things are going well with your customers, try making customer research a part of that. Like get them when they have just experienced the product. They've experienced it for just long enough to understand all the benefits it's bringing to their facility, and talk to them while they're still excited about it. Not, reaching back for, we had this great project that we'd love to do more of that we did 2.5 years ago. Let's cold reach out to the guy who hasn't heard from any customer success people at our company since. And it's like you making this an important and ongoing part of your company. If you can do that from a marketing seat, you will have impact like way, 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 way beyond what you're being paid. Like guaranteed. So I would say if you can do any small things to start making this like a cadence and a process, you are taking massive steps in the right direction.
Those were wonderful tips by the trio here. I think what I will leave the listeners with is you have to start the race to finish. So just try this, kind of what James is saying too. Start building into every function. Think about the customer, talk to the customer. It's going to make your marketing better. It's going to make you answer that question, which is, why am I doing this? It's for the customer. Now, we'll share some links because I believe, I'll do some plugs here, there is an Industrial Marketing Live from Gorilla 76 about this. And I know Mary and I are on it. Maybe James, you logged on that day. I'm not sure. We can share MJ Peters' podcast as, just to be transparent, we use that framework and format from her directly. And we've been doing it for a couple of years now. So we'll share those. This podcast will be on Spotify, Apple Music. I'm slowly getting them on YouTube. There's an appetite for that. DM us, ask us questions. We're always here for you. Specifically about this process is all three of us, I think, jumped into it with fresh eyes and just had to do it. So we have some deep expertise and understanding of like the pains of actually getting it done. And we happily will share that with you at any moment. So enjoy yourself. Have a good one. And we'll see you next time.
Peace.